Susan is on Facebook, and she asks, when or if is compromise something we should do? Question mark. House Senate Bill 5395 updates sex education. She says some of the areas for K-3 allows for talks about social and emotional feelings. High school talks about transgenders. I can see where talking to children, sometimes they have not been taught about feelings, can be helpful. I'm not in favor of public schools teaching about transgenders. What do you say to Susan?
Susan, you know, we're in a world that's different from where I grew up. You know, you've heard of the kind of the parable of the frog in boiling water. You start off, you put a frog in cool water, and you turn the heat up, and what's going to happen is the frog's not going to jump out because the water is getting hot slowly, and his body temperature is tied in with that whole thing. Where if you took a frog and you dropped him just, you know, from his environment into a vat of boiling water, he would jump out immediately. And our culture is like the frog sitting in water that's slowly being heated up to boiling. The school system doesn't have any business talking to my children about feelings at all. It's not their purview.
Yep.
What they're supposed to be doing is teaching my kid to read. They're supposed to be teaching my kid to write. They're supposed to be teaching my kid math. That's what they're supposed to be teaching my kid.
Academics.
Yeah, it needs to be academics. And so if I had a teacher that was trying to delve into the feelings of my child in the public school system, I would go down and have a talk with them and tell them to stop it. And so there's nothing about this sex ed bill that I'm okay with on any kind of level. I don't care if they're doing it, you know, a little bit at a time. Again, it's not their purview to talk to my kid about their feelings. That's mine. And even sex ed in general, this is something that was brought in when I was in high school, or actually when I was in junior high, is when they first started bringing this whole thing in, and it's turned into a nightmare. And what they've done is indoctrinated kids into an attitude towards sex that most families don't agree with on any kind of level. And so I don't like sex ed in the first place. And so my kids didn't, you know, they were in our school up until the point where it was junior high, and we don't do sex ed here. That's not something that happens. And if one of my teachers at our school got into any of this kind of stuff, if they started moving in those kinds of arenas and started taking over parental, authority, parental positions with kids, we'd be having a talk, and if it continued, I'd fire them because that's not what they're supposed to be doing. And so we do talk to the kids about Jesus. We talk to the kids about having a relationship with God. We tell the parents up front that that's what we're going to be doing, but we don't undermine the authority of the family, and we don't take things that are under the purview of moms and dads and make it something that we do here at school. I don't think it's not appropriate. And so that is not something that I would compromise on.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was thinking, you know, we've compromised for years so bad that now when you're looking at the college institutions, they're overrun.
Yeah.
We already had a question on teaching the kids meditation. This is sexual orientation and transgender and all the other stuff. And even in the bill that I read, it gets vulgar to where they wouldn't even read it in Congress because it was so ridiculous.
Right.
They wouldn't say the words in front of adult people.
Well, they couldn't.
Right.
Yeah, it was illegal.
Because it was illegal, yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the nuclear family. So the colleges are done because the kids are on their own. Now they're adults and they're 18. They can do whatever they want. Now it's creeping down. Now it's in the grade schools. And we have a full, like you said, indoctrination. And we've compromised to the point where now we're in the situation where it's affecting our nation.
Right.
Because you have people that are coming out of this and they have those viewpoints now.
Yeah. You know, Susan, a lot of the stuff that is being proposed in this sex ed bill is like literally grooming. These are things that people who are into sexual deviancy do with children to get them into a mindset where they can molest them. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, a 6-year-old is not somebody who's thinking about having sex. They're not thinking about whether or not they have a tendency towards homosexuality or towards heterosexuality. Those kinds of things have to be put into their head. That's not where little kids live. And so again, one of the things that takes place when you have this kind of stuff going on is they're placing thoughts, they're placing attitudes, they're indoctrinating children to go in certain directions. They're bringing up subjects that a kid would never think of. And you know, all you got to do to understand this is just think back on your past, think back on your life. There were times when all of a sudden sexual things became an issue with me, and it's because of the things that I saw, or the things that I heard, the things that were put into my head from either another kid, or sometimes it was from an adult. In one instance, it was a picture in a men's bathroom, and never thought about it before. And then bam, there's this thing, and all of a sudden here I am thinking about things that never even crossed my mind. And so taking this kind of stuff and dealing with little kids in those kinds of arenas and bringing the subject up is grooming. That's what's happening there. And so there's going to be all kinds of consequences that come from that. And again, it's not something that's under the purview of a teacher. If I was a teacher and I saw a little kid that was highly sexualized, I would have a conversation with the parents about it and tell them, hey, you might need to be talking to your kid about some things. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't do it myself, ever. I would never do it myself. And so that's something that belongs in the parents' hands.
So I know this is not regarding her question or whatever, but the boundaries are being pushed in almost every area as far as morality and folding your cards and mm-hmm. Christianity on every level of our nation. One of those is obviously my kids have been homeschooling, now they're private school, but they're starting to push that homeschooling is illegal and making them go to a public school where they teach that stuff. And if that happens in my lifetime, I'm going to war over that. I'm not allowing my kids
and again,
to be
just
forced into that.
Yeah, think of the mindset behind that.
Yeah.
It's like there are specific things that we want your kids taught, and so we want them in the public schools so that they get taught these things.
Yep.
And again, it's not something that's under the government's purview. It's not something that the government is supposed to be doing.
Right.
And there's no reason for it except for indoctrination.
Yep.
And so, again, like I said, that's something I would have fits over, and it's one of the reasons that we did homeschool and that we did private school, specifically because of this kind of nonsense.